So today's video is going to be a little bit different. We broke a car for spares back in August, September time, and we haven't done the part 2 on it yet because we were trying to sell the parts over time. And we have sold most of the parts, but obviously we were saving this video for a time where it'd be a little bit of a lull. And that time is probably about now because we are waiting parts for the bodged Mini Cooper S. And because it's Christmas, those parts won't turn up now until probably the first week of January. So I thought we'd do a little bit of a flashback, show you the car, go through the reasons to why it was broken, and then show you how much money has actually been made. So it's a little bit of a different video, but hopefully you'll enjoy it. So let's get into it. So for context, this is how the car would have been listed for £600, but with a set of headlights included. Now the interior was quite unusual. It was rare dimpled leather, paddle shift on the steering wheel, automatic transmission. The rear end had no rust on it, there was no rust on the tailgate or under the lights. The engine bay was mostly complete with a couple of plastics missing, but a full set of braided hoses from the ABS pump down to the calipers, and a set of rare Checkmate flame wheels also included, all for £600 spares and repairs. So a few questions that came up originally, which I will now answer finally, is how much did we pay for that car in the first place? Why did we buy it? Now that car was bought for the engine and the gearbox that were in the car at the time. Now my dad has a 2005 dark silver Mini R53 automatic. He can't drive manual because he had an operation on his knee, and the gearbox gave out in his car. The diff was really whiny in it. It sounded like a wheel bearing was going, and he needed a new gearbox. And this car I'd already had some history with. I'd done the head gasket in there. The gearbox was working fine, but it did have a number of issues itself, and that was wiring problems and some corrosion, and I think there was an ABS issue at the time as well. So what we decided to do was buy the entire car for spares or repairs, and the reason why we done that versus putting a new valve body or a new diff into the gearbox was because one of these gearboxes in good working condition can be £600–700 on their own. And the problem with that is you don't know the history of the car. You don't know what car it's come out of, and you don't know how long it's been sitting around for. And these are not the easiest gearboxes to change. They're really, really heavy. And unfortunately, they are prone to failing, especially on the valve bodies. I thought it'd be worth showing you the two plugs on the gearbox. You can see there's a lot of electrical tape and cable ties wrapped around them, and these actually go all the way back into the dash loom, so you can't just change these two plugs. And the corrosion under the carpet in the back, this was really, really thin in this area and could be bent by just 2 fingers. So after receiving countless lowball offers at my £600 asking price, I decided to maybe try something a little bit different and start stripping the car down for parts to compare how much we could have made selling the car as spares and repairs versus how much it was worth in parts. When I say strip, this is all that was left when it got to scrapping the shell. We got a local company to come and pick up the shell, and as you can see it was in rolling condition with just the doors and the bonnet and the rear bumper left. And then we proceeded to get listing the parts on eBay and try and recoup some of the money that we'd outlaid on buying the car in the first place. So, bit of an update. Sold a couple more bits off the car. The interior has now been sold. I'm just on my way to drop that to the guy now. And the horns off the car, the low and high pitch horns, they've both sold as well. So we got £15 for the horns. We got £120 for the interior and £25 to deliver it. So yeah, we're currently on my way, sort of about an hour's drive, but I'm going to drop the interior up, and yeah, so a little bit of progress. And I took the challenge quite seriously. I even collected up all of the scrap metal off of the car that I could find, including the wiring loom for the car complete, and actually took it down to a local metal recyclers to see exactly how much the car would have been worth, even in scrap value. So as you can see, this challenge is something a little bit different. So now, let's get into the price breakdown and see exactly how much we made from stripping this car in parts. So, let's get into the prices. So I've got a cup of coffee. I've got my iPad. It's currently 3 degrees in here, so I don't want to be hanging around too long. Let me quickly talk about the logistics of selling and breaking stuff off of a car. It's really labour intensive work. Obviously this was 3 months ago since I sold the parts or started breaking the car. It's taken 3 months to actually get rid of the majority of the parts off of the car. And some of the bigger items that you would expect people to not necessarily snap up, but you'd expect them to go fairly quick, didn't go fairly quick. So luckily I've got a pallet and tarpaulins, I've covered them all up, etc, etc. But you do need quite a lot of space to store stuff in. The second part of it is if you're using a driveway, make sure obviously that you're able to break the car without upsetting your neighbours. So I'm quite conscious of the fact that things like impact guns are quite loud, so I won't necessarily start before 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock at the weekends, and I'll probably be done by like 2, 3 o'clock at most. There will be some times where I'll be working on a car and it will go outside of those hours, but then what I'll do is basically convert to using hand tools only, so I'm not using guns or grinders and stuff like that. So just bear in mind, you don't want to upset the people that live around you because they can make your life quite difficult. Selling stuff can be quite hard as well. So obviously you've got things like owners clubs, forums, eBay, Vinted, Facebook Marketplace, all those sorts of areas. But you do need to be aware that you do have a trading allowance limit and you don't want to exceed that, because if you go above a certain amount, I think with eBay it's like £1,700. I think if you go above that, they'll report you to HMRC. And that's not £1,700 profit, that's just £1,700 sales. So you do need to be aware of that as well. Otherwise, you may run into things like HMRC saying that you may owe them some tax. You know, you do have an exception to that, which is if you are selling your own personal items. I think it's £6,000. But you need to prove that they're your personal items. So basically, just be careful what you sell, and if you do go above that, just bear in mind you might get a letter. So with the boring stuff out of the way, let's move on to the price breakdown on what has sold. Now, some items off of this car we have kept, and the reason why we've kept them is because we have 2 automatic cars, R53s, in the family. Both my parents drive R53 automatics. So it makes sense to keep some of the stuff that is auto-specific so that if something goes wrong, we've got it available. What I've done with those is I've put them at the top of the list. So I'll go through them to begin with. I'll let you know the eBay prices for them, but they're not part of our running total. They're just stuff we've stored. But it'll give you an idea of how much that stuff is worth. So the throttle pedal is automatic specific, and that is £44.85 on eBay for one that fits that car. Automatic charge pipe is, again, the throttle body sits a different way round compared to a manual car on an auto R53. That's £39.95 on eBay. The air intake pipe, the OEM one, £36.21. Sucking jet pump vacuum hose. Now this is specific to the automatic, and I believe it goes into the throttle intake pipe. I've had to buy one of these 2 years ago from BMW. That was £95 at the time, and that's the price I put down because you can't get them on eBay. The lower coolant hose was £10. The upper coolant hose is another £10. Again, they're both auto-specific. They have a slightly different elbow on them when it comes out of the thermostat housing, so it's a little bit steeper. Therefore, it will fit a manual car, but you can't fit a manual hose onto the auto, I think. Something like that. 6-speed cooler hose set. So on top of the gearbox on the automatics, that's where the oil cooler sits. On a manual, it's on the back of the engine. Now, there is a hose that goes onto that oil cooler, but it looks really complicated. You can't just replace one of those hoses if it goes wrong. You have to replace the whole thing. I'll pop a picture of it on screen. It's a mess, basically, but they are £147 to buy, which is mental. So yeah, that's been put into a box for storage. The braided brake lines, they were actually used on the R53 John Cooper Werks car. If you remember, they were orange. I paid £100 directly for those. So I put it on here, but obviously I've bought them, so I'll add that onto the other list down the bottom. Drive shaft set left and right, £70 for the pair on eBay, but we've stored them. The transmission control unit is £139.99 on eBay, but if you were to buy that from Mini, it's just under £1,000. So it shows you the reason as to why we kept that. Brake pedal box, £40 on eBay. ABS pump, we've used that already on the factory John Cooper Werks car. If you remember, I had to split the valve body away from the module. That valve body came off of this car. So again, it's already coming useful. And the exhaust manifold and fuel pump have been stored as well. Fuel pumps don't generally go wrong, but if they do, we have a spare. Exhaust manifold flexi split all the time, so we kept that just in case. So basically, the grand total of everything, knocking out the braided brake line set because we've used that, and the ABS pump, is £731 of parts that we have kept, and that's based off eBay pricing. So instantly, if the car was for sale for £600 and these parts on their own are worth £700, I guess you can say technically we've already made our money back, but obviously these parts we're only using as and when. So at the moment, I wouldn't say it's dead money, but it's parts that we've kept that are useful for the future. So that's where we're at with that. Let's start with the parts that have gone and they have been sold and people have bought them. So obviously the braided brake line set, first of all, £100. The power steering pump went £100. Miltech stainless steel catback exhaust, that was £200. The Xenon headlamps, I paid £100 for those, and I used them in the video for coding a halogen to xenon set, which I'll post a link to up in the corner up there. That's on the second channel now, so that'll eventually come off the main channel. So I'll leave a link to the second channel video up there if anyone wants to watch that. A-pillar trim for the near side. These are the ones that normally get broken when the windscreens get replaced, £20. Cooper S side skirts, both the offside and near side, they were £40 for the pair. Low pitch and high pitch horn, I think I explained earlier in the video, they went for £15 with the interior leather set. That went for £120. Car mats went on Facebook Marketplace for £20 and 40p. That's because we had to spend some money shipping them. So these are the prices after shipping and fees. Interior carpet, the black one that was in the car, that went for £25. The Cooper S bumper trim off the rear bumper, so that's the bit that if people don't fit their exhaust properly, it can melt. That was £14 and 16p. And that was a bit of a weird one because basically the guy had fitted I can't remember what it's called, is it diverter, diffuser, something like that. He fitted it and he cut it too short. And I said to him, look, let me know how much you need. I think I cut it in half and just sent him half of it, and he paid after fees and postage, it was £14, 16p. The expansion tank was £9.57. Speedo went for £13.60 on eBay. Cooper S side scuttles went for £14 and 72p. That's for both of them again on eBay. Door check strap for a facelift door check strap, that was £10. The chrome down tubes. So I can't remember if they were in the first video or not, but the down tubes that go around the stereo, they were chrome, and we couldn't work out whether they were genuine or not genuine. The consensus was they were not genuine, but unusual. They went for £16 on eBay. Boot release latch, so on the facelift cars, where the tailgate shuts, that little latch part down there has a pull cord to eject. On the early cars it doesn't. That was, where's that gone? That went for £11.90, which again, I think most people probably would have scrapped that, so a bit unusual. Teflon supercharger with a standard pulley on it. That had a reasonably new water pump on there as well. That went for £187.92. We obviously had to buy some bubble wrap and brown tape, so I've taken that off of there as well. Facelift door card, armrests, so the leather ones that go over the Torx screw on the facelift cars. I'll post a picture on screen and circle what I'm talking about. £18.44 for both of them. Pair of sun visors went for £17.94. They had lights in them, but some don't come with them, so yeah, they were both working okay. Parcel shelf went for £20. Front bumper went for £40. Alternator went for £48.68. I think that was the original Denso one. I can't actually remember, but if you look up here, he says, there's an alternator sitting on the shelf there. Generally, second-hand alternators are fine if you know the mileage or they're reasonably new. The Denso ones are getting on a bit and they are prone to cracking, so you take your chances with one of them. This one was okay, it was putting out good voltage, but obviously as winter hits, these sort of things will be prone to failing if they are getting weaker. So if you do buy a second-hand alternator, just make sure it looks like it's in decent condition beforehand, or it's off a low mileage car. Locking wheel nuts, £8.40 for a set. Aircon pump went on Facebook Marketplace for £23.90, which is, I wasn't expecting that to go, but it did. Engine wiring loom went for £35. I do have a couple more wiring looms off of that car still sitting up here for the doors, because they're power fold wiring looms. So if you need a set of power fold wiring looms, I actually think they're both in pretty good condition as well. I think the only thing that needs changing on one of them is the speaker wiring plug, I think was broken, but obviously you can put aftermarket speakers in with them. It's not a Harman Kardon one, and you can just put your own spade connectors on them. So yeah, if you need them, hit me up on Instagram. Going back to where we were at, sorry. So engine wiring loom, £35. Aircon pump, £23.90. We've gone over that. W11 engine. So the engine that was in this car was on 100,000 miles. It was actually in pretty good nick as well, but trying to sell engines is quite difficult unless you want to post them. And for some reason, the price on engines at the moment is ridiculously cheap. So if you need a W11 engine, now's probably the time to buy one. This one went for £217.99, and it was actually a pretty good engine. Yeah, I don't know if I'm disappointed with that or not. You know, at the end of the day, I wasn't going to pallet it out to anybody. Someone did come and collect it, so I've got to factor that in as well. It was on eBay for 2 cycles, I think, so it went round twice, and then someone bid on it. But yeah, I'm not sure on that. Let me know what you guys think. I think £217 for a supercharged engine is pretty good value. I think as a seller, maybe a bit disappointed, but let me know what you think. Rear lights, the facelift rear lights, they went for £28.90. Fuel cap conversion, again, this one was a bit surprising. It only went for £21.67. I've sold those before off of other cars, or people have asked to buy them and they've been a bit higher than that, generally somewhere between £30 to £40. Way back when they were like 60, 70 quid. So yeah, a little bit disappointing. That came with the ring and the fuel cap and the chrome cap itself, so it had basically everything you need to swap it on an R50 to an R53. So yeah, coolant crossover pipe, so that's the little metal one that goes in the thermostat housing, that was £15. And the automatic gearbox, this is a bit of a strange one, because I honestly expected it to be worth a bit more than it actually went for in the end, but it was on eBay for a while. Now, the gearbox was listed as spares and repairs, good working valve body with a torque converter and the oil cooler, and it made £155. Now, as I said earlier in the video, if you need to buy a valve body on its own refurbed, it's nearly 700 quid. So yeah, a little bit disappointing, but I guess the next question probably would have been, what if you'd taken the valve body out and the torque converter out and sold those separately? So I suppose that might have been the way to do it rather than the whole gearbox, and obviously someone needed to pick the gearbox up as well. The guy that actually collected it, I don't actually know what he was doing. I mean, apologies if you're watching it. He turned up in his R53 Mini and he just put it in the boot. It was full of gearbox oil, and these things are really heavy, like really heavy. So he did message me to tell me that he got home, but yeah, I mean, if you need to pick one of them up, take a van or an estate car or something, because yeah, I was a bit worried for him. I gave him loads of blankets and towels to actually stop it from moving around in the back of his car, but I don't think he was prepared for how heavy it was either. So you live and learn. So yeah, everything, bearing in mind some of that stuff I've paid for myself and used on a couple of cars, so I have factored it into the pricing, but it wouldn't have been any different if someone else had bought it. I think we come to a total of £1,659.75. Now, obviously, some of that has been taken up by having to buy bubble wrap and brown tape to send stuff off, which I think come to about 35 quid. So, yeah, compared to the £600 we had it up for, that's obviously quite a big difference. So it shows that if you're willing to put in the time and the effort, you can make more money out of that. But let me know what you guys think, whether it was worth the effort, whether it was interesting, not interesting, whether you'd like to see something similar to this in the future. The only thing that I missed off that list, sorry, just quickly, that was also included in that price was the scrap weigh-in. So where I videoed earlier, taking in the wiring loom and those bits of scrap metal, they actually made, there was also a battery included in that as well, which I don't know if it was in there or not, but the scrap came to £45.20. So as a little test to see if it was worth taking stuff in, I mean, let me know what you guys think. I think the bulk of that was probably the wiring loom from inside the car. I think that comes to about 25 quid in total. But let me know what you guys think on that, whether it's worth doing that or not. I think it was about a 15-20 minute drive to go and take that in. They were really helpful down there. The same guys also collected the car as well. Not on the same day, and it wasn't a conversation I had when I was down there. I just rang them up after I'd been in because they seemed quite friendly, and I just said to them, look, got a shell, it's rolling, would you be interested in it? And that's when he said, look, there's not much in it for me. And I was like, yeah, I know, but if you're passing, wagon's empty and you want to drop in and just collect it, I'll make it easy for you. And then they did. So again, a big thank you to them. I won't call them out in the video, like I said, but they were really useful, really friendly guys as well. So we'll definitely use them again if they want to come pick up another car at some point. And I think my consensus for anyone that's actually interested is that it was a good experiment. Would I do it again? Possibly, but maybe not go to the extreme that I went to this time round. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. I appreciate this is a bit of a slow video compared to what we've been doing in the past couple of weeks. We'll get back on to the R53, the bodge one, hopefully next week. If not the week after, we're still waiting for some bits to turn up. But yeah, let me know what you think. interesting, not interesting, want to see something similar in the future, really not that bothered. And if you managed to watch the first video from start to finish, congratulations to you, because I started watching it and I couldn't. So that might be one that we might need to re-upload with better audio in the future. But thank you again for everyone that's watched. Happy New Year for 2025, because by the time the next video comes out, it will be a new year. And if you haven't already, keep an eye on the Instagram. There'll be a few unusual parts coming up in the next few weeks as we have a bit of a clear out. And don't forget to watch the second channel, because there will be a video coming out this week on something that's a bit unusual, doesn't really come up very often, but could be useful to you if you happen to get shut out of your car, maybe. Or if you buy a car and you don't have a key for it. So yeah, let me know what you think of this video, and I will catch up with you all again in 2025.